And welcome to the April 27th meeting of the Lake Forest Historic Preservation Commission on this beautiful spring evening. The commission is here tonight to work together with all of you, property owners, neighbors, and architects, to continue the tradition that was established nearly 40 years ago in this community. This tradition is a review process that allows community members to work together to preserve the qualities and the unique character that make Lake Forest a special community. The City of Lake Forest is committed to conducting open and democratic meetings. To achieve that goal, their procedures have been adopted by the Commission, and a copy of those are available in the back of the room on each agenda. As always, it is the intent of the Commission to help manage the development and growth of the City of Lake Forest with a keen sense of preserving the historic structures and open space in the city for all its present and future residents. Our goal is to move each petition before us tonight through the review process as quickly as possible while balancing the interests of the petitioners and the neighboring property owners and the larger community. Welcome, everyone. We'll start with the introduction of the commissioners. If you would start to my right, please.
Peter Schaefer.
Wells Wheeler.
John Travers.
Jim Preschlack.
Robert Elfie.
Carol Gale.
Great, thank you, everyone. And we all got meeting minutes for the April 5th meeting. Did everybody get a chance to take a look at those of those minutes, and did they have any feedback or updates or comments for the staff? If not, do I have a motion to approve the minutes? Do I have a seconded?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. The first petition and agenda item is going to be a request for appropriateness for the demolition of an existing location at 676 Lake Road in a replacement structure. Please come on up and introduce yourself. Before you get started, I'm going to ask the commissioners if they have any conflicts of interest or any ex parte communication with the petitioners or anybody involved in the petition.
No.
No? Okay, great. And thanks. We'll do 10 minutes of a presentation, and then the staff will do a report, and then we'll do question and answers. So thank you. If you please introduce yourself for the folks at home. And
Sure. Thank you very much. My name is Bob Crawford, and good evening to everybody here. Winnie and I are delighted to be here with our team to chat with you about our new home at 676 Lake Road. If somebody would have told me a year ago that I would be here proposing a demolition of our house and building a new one, I would have said they're crazy. It's the last thing I expected to do. You know, after selling my company about a year and a half ago, I wanted to relax somewhere. But at any rate, about a year ago, we engaged Jill Danley, who has a strong design background and was an adjunct architectural professor at IIT for a number of years. And she also had a design firm with her father, Gil Horn, for 10 years. And we engaged her, and we said, we want to make some changes in our house. Come here and help us. And so we began to work on it. And the key things were to figure a way to renovate the home, put in an elevator, redo the kitchen, expand different areas, and redo a pool and all these sorts of things. Well, a funny thing happened. This all escalated, and about 6 months later, all of a sudden we found that our cost was going to be about the same cost to take down the house. So we migrated through the whole design process then of building a new house. So in the last 6 months, we made a decision to change from renovation to building a brand new home, and we just absolutely are excited about it. We love this great community. We've been here about 20 years and very fond of our location, which of course is on Lake Road right across from this wonderful new park that has been renovated. And we wanted to build a house that we could live in for the rest of our lives. So that was the objective. So we really put together a first-class team. Jill Danley, Natalie Clemens, who is a licensed, experienced architect who has worked internationally and has been in the business for 15 years. Also, Craig Bergman, who is a highly respected landscape architect, who has his own company, and as many of you know, has been a tremendous addition here to Lake Forest for the last 30 years. And finally, first-class builder by the name of Sean Freeman of 29 Inc. He and his company have built a number of homes along the North Shore, and he has an extraordinary reputation as well. Just incidentally, 29 is from his hockey jersey when he played at Lake Forest College. So everybody asks that, it's kid. But anyway, we think it's a terrific team, and Winnie and I are very excited to be here, so I'll turn it over to Jill Danley to go from here. Thank you very much,
Yeah.
Mr. Committee members. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you, Bob, for that introduction. Thank you for Historic Preservation Commission for allowing us to present for a certificate of appropriateness for the demolition of the existing and replacement of the residence for the Crawfords home located at 676 Lake Road. Bob has asked me to discuss our approach and current conditions. Natalie will explain the new construction and our process, and Craig will showcase our preliminary landscape plan with our overall design intent. Our team, along with our contractor, Sean Freeman, who's in the audience, are representing Bob and Winnie. Our team just mentioned respects the tremendous history evident in Lake Forest, Lake Bluff, and for a few of us, we have 30 years of partaking in this beautiful town. Our goal is to provide another piece of architecture that is fitting and sits properly on the road called Lake. We have been developing the site since October, 7 months of intense program development, many cups of strong Kona coffee, and truly understanding the needs of Bob and Winnie Crawford. We have met with Kathy and Kate, collaborating on numerous occasions, and we really appreciate the time spent collaborating our whole entire team. We had a clear path to new construction when it was evident from our structural engineer report the ongoing issues were extremely problematic. Along with Susan Benjamin's report that the home is indeed not a candidate for historic preservation. We moved on. And we've also found that we're also in a very interesting time. The lifestyle needs are changing for not only the Crawfords, but for many residents wanting to stay in their beloved homes. However, the constraining issues many existing homes present is not making that possible. The Crawfords home is simply not conducive to living and moving forward in its current state. With that said, let's partake in the design process and quickly touch on the current home and its place on Lake Road. The location map, 676 is obviously in the red square. And the next slide really shows the neighbors behind and to the north. Obviously, there's not that many neighbors at 676 Lake since across the street is Forest Lake. The house above, we'll go on to the existing slides. The original house where the Crawfords purchased it in the state above over 20 years ago. And then the Crawfords home today, and in '97, they added the front portico, a sunroom, and addition on the second floor bedroom. We'll go right into an existing first floor plan to see some of the problems that we're facing. Along with the structural issues discussed earlier, the existing home has several steps on the first level, causing Winnie to stand guard at their social gatherings to ensure safety. The red circles are highlighting the steps, and as you can see, they are present nearly everywhere. This is very problematic for the current and future lifestyle for Bob and Winnie. Another functional misstep, so to speak, is the long center corridor shown in the blue color, the access of the home. It has no natural light and does not partake in any views of the lake or private spaces to the backyard, and it bisects the home in an inappropriate way. The flow of the home has always been a concerning issue. The master bedroom is currently on the second floor, and they would love to have a first floor living space. There are many issues on the current house plans that we certainly can talk about in the question and answer period. These are just quick existing conditions and drawings of the home. This is looking at 676 from Lake. The existing west elevation, this is as you're strolling down Spring Lane. And this is the existing north and south elevations. To quickly summarize, Bob and Winnie want a forever home and a place to continue to entertain by opening up their home to various charities and extended family. A wheelchair-capable home with a first-floor lifestyle was critical in order for the Crawfords to stay in the location they love and where they wish to remain. We have developed a plan that provides all the elements they desire. The majority of the home on the first level, while maintaining a center mass, classic in intent. The following are the design parameters. Let's now go to the drafting table.
Hello, everyone. I'm Natalie Clemens. My first time presenting to Lake Forest, so it's very exciting.
Well, thanks for coming. Welcome.
Yeah. So we started right here on the lot, and you can see the square in blue. That is, we are on a corner lot, and that is the area that we can actually build within. So we have 3 50-foot setbacks all around, which leads to a very long linear lot that we can build in. The light green shows the wooded area on the north that we would like to preserve, and the dark green circle, that is a beautiful, very tall tree that we'd like to preserve as well. So starting here, we just worked in what we could actually put in the setbacks, and you can see from some of our original sketches on the right there, how we were trying to fit the new circular driveway in the house into those setbacks. We looked at a lot of historic exemplars to look at a long linear house, and what we realized is that a lot of them come with this center tall massing, and then they have wings that go off the side, and you can see on the left there's 2 very linear examples, and then on the right we have 2 that take more advantage of the site, and they add a little more depth and centering on more a presence on the site. Here, this is the color elevation, and I just wanted you to see the actual massing that we're talking about here with the center section that is taller, and then the first floor wings that maintain a low elevation. And I'm showing you this. I want to break down our process a little bit there. If you can see these areas right here, those are those red dashed squares. Those are the wings that we originally were talking about on the house. And because of the wooded area to the north and that green circle is the tree, we had to rotate one of the wings, which is the master bedroom. So this did a lot for us. It gave our site a little bit more depth, but it also it also allowed us to define the privacy of the backyard. You can see into the backyard space, as you saw in the existing elevations from Spring Lane, and that with the house and with Craig Bergman's design, we can block and define that backyard space for privacy. Going to the other side, the other wing on the south, what we did was we pushed that one back so that we made the center massing more prominent on the site. Now that is the service wing of the house, so we did have to morph the shape a little bit to fit 4-car garages in there. And I'll try to skip ahead quick earlier. We are trying to recenter on the site. So we are keeping the existing curb cuts and centering the house and the new arc on the garage, on the driveway to that. And I'll just go ahead and skip to the next. These are the proposed floor plans. And what we really wanted to do was, with the spaces and the voids, was to open up the house a lot more, make it a lot more airy than it was, as Jill talked about with the bisected house before. And I think that we achieved that. We did push a lot of the bulk. The house is smaller than what's on site now, so we did push a lot of the living area bulk down into the basement, as well as giving a secondary apartment for a secondary caregiver down there that has a private outdoor access. The second floor we maintained as being the guest quarters, and it's really tight. The volume is much condensed to what was before on the site. Before, the whole house was second floor. This is just the center mass. And the roof plan is above. Again, here let's revisit the color elevations with the materials. And here, this is a new drawing for you guys. This is the rear yard with the materials. And you can see those voids popping out, providing a nice rhythm across the backyard as well. The north side from Spring Lane, and then the south side from the neighbor's view. We looked at a lot of the local materials, the exemplars of the local sites for our material choices and the colors and proportions, the classical European styles that follow. We've chosen, and we've brought material samples up here in front that we can pass around later, but we've chosen whitewashed, light-colored brick blend. We have the 2 there. We plan to blend them together. Shingled, cedar shake roof, the nearby sourced Indiana limestone, and dental crown molding around the whole entire house in the Pharaoh and Ball paint color, like an off-white color. I just want to break down some of the elements of the house real quick to explain some of them to you guys. The first is the main entry approach, and what we put a crown on the house with a pediment, and we wanted to give it a little more depth, so we recessed the wall behind it, and we've added this two-story fenestration feature that is the door below and the window above, and it is surrounded in limestone and the wood trim. We've also brought out this arch, which makes the entry much more intimate to approach the house, and it also gives some weather barrier protection, because this is a rough site. It's right on the lake, and it's going to get some rain damage if you're coming to the house. Next, we wanted to point out the conservatory. Now, the conservatory is our take on the sunroom, and it is very popular historically to have a conservatory. So what we want to do is have the walls be the screened wall of the sunroom, but the roof be the tempered glass roof with the white detailing. And we think this really adds to the delicateness of that center mass and how it rests on the site. And some other details are things like the cupolas and the exaggerated chimney clay pots. And the three top images on the right, those are local images. The cupola there is that is the neighbor right behind us. They have a cupola that's very similar to ours. And the other two images of the exaggerated clay chimney pots, those are right there on Lake Road. And then the three bottom images are European examples of the same thing, that we're bringing the same idea back in and reincorporating it into Lake Forest. And the garages, when we split the garage, we realized that one of them would be facing the street. So we wanted to make sure that we had some local precedents to compare that to. And 5 of the neighbors actually have garages that face the street. So I'm just showing 4 right there. We've also did the lattice work, coach house finish, to pay homage to one of the neighbors who has a beautiful latticed garage door. And then we can use that in our some other details on site, like the pool shed that we're putting in back. They have an existing pool shed, and it's not placed very well on the site. It's interrupting our pool, where we would actually like the pool. So from that, we're going to take that lattice work and incorporate that on the facade of this pool house. And we've allotted space for a pergola entry into that to soften. We do have a pergola in the back of the house, so it will interact with that. We know this is still in design development right now, but we have allotted the 100 square feet for it and the 20 feet for the pergola. And with that, if Craig wants to speak more of it or the site, I will let him. Craig?
Good evening, everybody. I'll make this real quick. I told him I could do it in 2 minutes, but not negative 2 minutes. The leitmotif that Natalie has spoken about on the trellising of the 4 carriage garage doors, taking a conservatory idea and turning it into a screen porch with a glass roof for that transparency element, and having the need for an enclosure for pool equipment and or storage. On the next version of the landscape plan, you'll see it as a pool pavilion, because it'll be prettier in a shed. The trellising element, I think, is real conducive to heightening the European flair that obviously this architecture is referencing, and trying to get out of the characterization of a Georgian house. You know, we're trying to make an American house with quality references to materials and to architectural style. I don't know if I can work this thing. Okay. Perfect. So this is the overall preliminary landscape plan. As the ladies had eloquently told you, we attempted to accommodate guest parking in the 50-foot setback line. And interestingly, this client not only celebrates the site because they love it, but they're actually honoring the site by not overbuilding on it. We have been listening to a number of the communications that the city has been going back and forth through architectural massing, setbacks, softening edges, having more perforations in the building, and we're attempting to do that in the landscape as well. We're lucky enough when working on this property that the perimeter landscape is completely already impenetrable to neighbors' views. So the impact to any of the tangent properties will be minimal, and it will be actually a nice change for the neighborhood from Forest Park. Right now, the deep red tone and the heavy contrast between the trim color and the brick and the dark shutters of the current Crawford House, I think will be countered by this softness. You know, they're really looking to be much lighter on the landscape than they were in their first rendition of their home. The existing screening, as I had said before, to the left is the south property line, top right is the west property line, and east is across the street view from Spring Lane on the north property line. It's amazing to have this type of privacy and screening. And on the other side of the longest property line, the west, the client actually has a duplicate hedge even longer than the Crawford's hedge. There's an charming brick garden wall that we'll keep, and we're doing everything we can to preserve all of the major plant materials so this new house settles nicely into a well-established landscape to begin with. The woodland garden, if you were lucky enough to see it over the last couple of weeks, it's really come into its own. Winnie has really, loved this area for a long time. And this is the view corridor from Lake Road into the backyard. Spring Lane is actually concealed by that big grove of Norway spruce, but the new construction as well as our new landscape will give that private backyard feel that we're all speaking about. To see a landscape that's predominantly green and not hard and built is very exciting for me. They've downsized their pool, they've downsized their patio, they've downsized their pool shed. We have told Bob he needs to increase his vegetable garden, and Winnie needs more flowers. So we're doing it, I think, in an elegant way and a sensitive way to the neighborhood. And this is hard to see. We actually provided you a copy of this. It's kind of like a montage of the three adjoining, visual adjoining properties from Lake Road view if you're standing in Forest Park. But to have this new home nestled into this beautiful piece of property in one of the stellar locations in our town, I think would be a real benefit to the neighborhood and very much reflecting how important the Crawfords are to our town. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, now it's time for a staff report. Kate or Kathy, would you please give us your thoughts?
Yes, thank you. So the petition is before the commission this evening for direction and initial consideration. As the petitioner sort of explained, we anticipate that there's going to be some refinements and changes to the site plan, the landscape plan, as well as additional information on the proposed pool shed on the site. So this is really the opportunity for the commission to deliberate on the demolition request. Staff reviewed the demolition criteria. It does appear to be met. The home is not historic. So we are recommending that once the petition comes back, that the demolition be approved. And then we're looking for the board's or the commission's direction on several items that were outlined in the staff report in relation to some of the design elements, the massing, proportions. So we're looking for a very specific direction on that. The owners were really proactive in contacting and communicating with their neighbors, so you received a number of letters of support. The Preservation Foundation also submitted an email noting that they are in support of the demolition, and they also offered to work with the petitioners and offer any suggestions or anything on the design as it develops. So staff is recommending that the petition be continued to allow time for the refinements that need to be made and taking into any consideration that the commission has.
Okay,
Thank
thanks. So we're not supposed to vote on it per se, even because both the demolition and the new design are tied together and they have to be approved
That's correct.
at the same time. So you're just looking for feedback on massing and design characteristics and the general layout Do you have any specific concerns that you want us to bore in on that?
We did call out in the staff report bullet points of different different areas that may or may not be areas of concern. So that would be something to look for. And then at the end of the staff report, there are some general concepts to discuss. And we would also like to get your feedback on the demolition request, even though there won't be an approval tonight,
Okay.
at least some discussion and deliberation on that.
Okay, thanks. And so now's the time for us to ask questions, and then we'll open up to the public for questions or comments, and then we'll deliberate and provide feedback along those lines. And I guess the first question I have for the petitioner, I don't know if it's Natalie or Craig, but just in general, what are the kind of unifying architectural design elements and characteristics and styles that really inspired the project? I mean, just at real high level, like you covered a ton of ground, but if you were describing this project to your 80-year-old grandmother and you were telling her why you're doing it and just what's inspiring you, I think Craig had mentioned some European design elements, and you obviously took a lot of time to try to understand the streetscape and the material structure around the adjacent properties on Lake Road. But just at a real big picture level, it'd be helpful for the commission if you could ground us in the architectural inspiration for the project.
Yes, of course. We did initially, right now, Winnie has a Georgian home, and she wanted to continue with that. But we realized that we're not really in the category of Georgian. We define ourselves more as Georgian influenced, with strong classical European features coming through. We do. I mean, this view right here, it's beautiful. It looks like a Georgian. It's when we get into the actual workings of the house and the layout that we really break that. Anytime that we have questions or concerns, we go first to our Georgian reference books and we look there. So I think under that, our primary influence is a Georgian. We did want to open the house much more. Right now, Winnie and Bob feel that the windows are a little too small, a little too far spaced, so we did add all these patio doors that come out the front. There's 6 4-foot patio doors that just open up, so you can open the whole first floor of the house up. So it's a filter almost from the lake to their private little oasis they've created as their backyard. So that was one of our primary moves. And let's see, the formal, Jill, do you have anything to add? No.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks. And maybe describe a little bit about the process that you went through with the neighbors and the adjoining property owners. I think it's always really helpful and encouraging for us to see all the feedback from all the different property owners that are adjacent to
Yeah.
the property.
Unfortunately, I haven't gotten to
And
read
we-
the notes. I would have loved to read them. But
Yeah, so can you just give us a sense for, the timeline on the project in terms of when they were involved and how
Yeah,
much input
we-
they gave, or just kind of when you showed it to
we
them and
started,
how they?
let's see, yeah.
Sure, yeah, come on up. Yeah, thanks.
Because I was involved in this.
Yeah,
We took the plans to all our neighbors and we showed it to them. We laid it on their kitchen table, and some of them came over and looked at them, and we just felt that it was so important from our side to be able to get the support of these people, because we wanted this project to really integrate with the neighborhood, and particularly with the streetscape and the park that has just been fabulously renovated, if I can use this word. So I think, from our side, we got really some very positive, enthusiastic response. But we were keeping, essentially, as Natalie said, the Georgian design. Inspired design is a technical word. And the house is very close to its original spot. And one of the things that our team built was the model, so you can really see where it exactly is. And that's precise. And so I think that, I think we feel very good, from the feedback we're getting. And then the end result is that we're going to have, we believe, something that is going to be integrated into Lake Forest. When you go down Spring Lane, walking or driving, you will, to see the park, you will see a house that hopefully is and we will bet our lives on it, is vastly better than the home that you're taking down.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. And I think before we ask additional questions, and I really appreciate, and all the commissioners appreciate the model, because it always helps us to absorb projects and ascertain their impact when you see it in 3D. In some cases, the two-dimensional is very difficult. So maybe we'll just pause for a second and we can convene around the model and just walk around it a little bit and absorb just some of the angles and then come back and we can open up to questions. So let's just adjourn briefly to take a look at the model.
Okay, those models. They're nice.
If you want, Ellie, you can
That's what would you like?
Okay, much softer, and it's not just a divider between the front and the back half of the property.
That's great, thanks. I guess the only other question I had before I open it up to other commissioners is, so our process with the ordinance that was put in place in '98 by the city council to establish the board is to look at these projects in two parts. So one is the demolition, and then we have criteria that we seek to evaluate them. And, our board is unique in that we do not think about the economic issues associated with projects. It's purely aesthetics and protecting and preserving architecture that's really deep ingrained in our community, historical structures and contributing structures, and also architects that have done a lot of work here that are famous. And so the first part of what we do is we take a look at the existing home and we look at the criteria that we have in front of us. I'm just curious if you looked at those and if you could touch on those at all in terms of how you thought about the house and the criteria. And as an architect, were you like, oh, wow, because you're new to the city and/or this ordinance, but was it, oh, okay, I understand the criteria and this house doesn't really meet these criteria do not influence the demolition in a negative way, or how you thought about that? And I'm just curious because sometimes we have to understand that, and I think for you to speak to us on that evidence, or give us the evidence versus us reading in between the lines, is important. So if you could spend some time thinking about the existing structure and the criteria, and at least talking on that at a high level, I think that's really helpful to us. And then as we deliberate, we'll give you our feedback.
Yeah. It became apparent since my first visit in, I think it was late August, maybe September, that the house, although from the outside appears to be Georgian, it is not at all on the inside. The whole thing is off center. When you walk into the center foyer, it's off center of the house. So you're immediately drawn to one side. It is very dated to the time it was built in the 70s. All of the structures are built to the era they're built in. And the architect, Charles, what was his last name? Age. Yeah, he did add his own flair to it, but it was not in keeping with a lot of classical styles. It was much more postmodern than what the other Georgians of the area are, I believe. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and the fact that the foundation is in support of the project
Yes.
is usually a good sign. And I'm sure they'll speak on it as we open up to the public, but I just wanted to ask you, so thank you on that. Are there other questions from the petitioners, or either for the staff or the petitioners from the other commissioners? Please, Bob, go ahead.
Would you comment on your choice of thinking in using the mutton pattern of 6/1 for this, and also the omission of muttons on the French doors?
Oh. Yes, we were trying to maintain almost that golden ratio in the individual panes of glass. I don't think we've chosen individual lights, but we were trying to maintain that golden ratio throughout. They are slightly diverted here and there, but they all kind of maintain the same proportion throughout the whole entire home. Windows, doors, the center double fenestration has the same detailing.
Also, there was a comment by staff regarding the skylights that are in the upstairs.
Yes, and that was one thing on my first initial meeting with Kate and Kathy. They pointed that out, and I do have to say in the latest packet there is a typo on the roof plan, but it's not actually domed. We've made it flat, and it's been flat for a couple of months now. It is domed on the interior, and that's because of an interior detail that we're doing with the arched hallway. So it will be a skylight on the interior that looks into a restroom for natural lighting for when he's makeup and doing your hair in the morning and that kind of stuff. But on the exterior, it will be flat.
Okay.
Chairman, I just wanted to note, I know you asked about the demolition. Susan Benjamin, who prepared the historic assessment for the property, is here, and may be appropriate to have her comment if you're going to focus on the demolition.
Yeah, sure,
First.
Susan. If you want to address the question I raised, and then we can open up to the new design.
I'm very happy to do that.
Thanks.
And I concur that this is not the existing building is not a very good example of Georgian architecture, partially because of the inconsistency of scale with the oversized coining and the attenuated columns as it had originally. And then it had been changed in the 1995 from Charles Page's original 1971-72 design, so that its integrity was compromised. So it's a postmodern is the right word. I mean, it was a reaction to classical architecture, and not a very thoughtfully considered interpretation of classicism at all, with great inconsistencies in the design.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Any other questions for the staff or the petitioners, either on the new design or the existing home and its historical? Yes,
One question
Commissioner
for the
Travers.
staff, more procedural. I was surprised, given how advanced this project is, really, and charismatic it is, and supported by everyone as it is. Why we are, and given the limited set of issues associated with it, and the limited scale of issues associated with it, why we are only considering this for continuance with direction as opposed to simply moving towards considering this for approval.
Kate, do you want to touch on that, just in terms of the open issues, and in some cases it looks like that Craig was brought on. I'm not sure when you were brought onto the project. I guess I'll answer it and I'll let you answer it. This is Lake Road, and I'm not. I think it's getting it right to the petitioner's satisfaction, and the neighbors seem to be aligned. And and if there's a little bit more time here, we're going to meet once a month for the next year. And I'm not too concerned about that. But at the same time, I totally concur. And we can get to the deliberation phase again. But I think if there is some time and the petitioner has been open to it, it's not a huge issue, but maybe you could reiterate some of the open points that you'd want our feedback on that would help clarify and just make the next time they come here to be lickety-split. That'd be great.
Yes, thank you. The landscape architect was brought in late in the process, so that really hasn't been developed fully yet because we haven't received plans for the proposed pool shed. We figured that that was an important piece that would be part of the overall site plan, and knowing that the site plan may change. We also have, the house is, overall, we feel that it is appropriate and it's moving in the right direction. We had some concerns that it might not be met all the standards at this point. So we were looking for the commission's input on just the general massing, some of the proportions of the front entryway, some details as far as, solids and voids around the house. So we didn't feel that it was quite ready to recommend approval at this point, but we are sensitive to the owner's needs, and I know they're anxious to get ready to build. So we thought this opportunity would be good for the commission to provide direction and input, and that way it would be fully ready with all information at the next meeting. If the commission found it appropriate, you could certainly deliberate at this meeting, but at this point, staff feels that there's some missing pieces and more information needed.
Okay. So it sounds like so there was two parts to your answer. The second part was more just getting our general feedback on the 17 design criteria that we have to consider when we approve new structures. And so for this project or petition, it's the existing structure being torn down and the demolition criteria, and then the 17 design criteria and the setbacks and other zoning issues that we consider to go ahead and approve. But the pool house, or anytime there's an existing structure that's maybe not fully baked, and the extent to which as that design evolves, it could move towards other elements in the landscape plan. I guess the question would be, Kathy, do you feel comfortable, or Kate, that we could decide on the design criteria and the demolition, and then have a condition of approval around the pool house? Or do you feel like it needs to come back to the commission because there's really substantive work there, or is it the last 10%?
If the commission is comfortable, I know the rear elevation, I believe you saw tonight, is slightly different from what's in your packet. We never saw that. So there are some moving pieces,
Okay.
but if you're comfortable enough, certainly you can move it forward with one or more conditions.
Okay,
So that's certainly an option.
So we're not going to jump to deliberation now, but thank you for answering the questions on that. Any other questions on the new design, any of the materials, any of the layout, architectural influence?
Can I ask one
Yeah.
technical question? My understanding was that we had an increase in impermeable surface area here. I'm trying to remember the number. About 2,500 square feet, was it? I'll look up the chart here.
Is that all in around the pool and the driveway and patios?
They have a calculation. Did you find it? No, it's a standalone.
Is it concerned around drainage?
Oh, right, and so it seemed like a reasonably substantial increase in impermeable surface area, and I was just wanting to confirm that understanding.
All right, well, let's,
It's included in your packet. We're currently looking for it right now. But.
Yeah, me too, I apologize.
okay.
I don't
Yeah.
see them.
There we go.
Thanks.
Okay. So the total impermeable increase is 2,513 square feet.
And you're asking for a breakdown of that, or you worrying about, what's the concern?
So the question was, actually whether that was the correct answer, and now we know because I have found the actual calculation. So we have an increase in impermeable surface area of 2,513 square feet, according to this calculation.
And what were the big deltas on that, Natalie? Do you know on, because that's probably, I'm just trying to think about driveway. If you're using the same curb cuts and
We are,
back.
we are using the same curb cuts. We have made the driveway slightly wider, and that
Okay.
is just for cars that are alighting in the front, so somebody could pass by if they needed. So it's only, I believe, 2 feet wider than the current condition around the driveway. We are adding some additional parking stalls for visitors, so that is taking up some extra impervious square footage. As Craig said, the square footage, the terraces in the back have gotten actually smaller. Right now, they're almost all hard surface, and they've gotten smaller, but a lot of it is also probably coming in that we've moved a lot of our bulk square footage down to the first floor.
Okay.
So we've taken what was on the second floor and put it on the first floor so that we can have the wheelchair-capable home that they want.
Craig, can you maybe come up and address potentially the drainage issues? If, the neighbors have seen the design and the aesthetics at the kitchen table, but, do you think, just based on your point of view, have they fully embraced the impervious surface issue and what it could be in terms of its influencing on the drainage? I know the property to the south is out of town, and they're in California. And so I'm not sure if they were even able to see it, but I'm just curious if you think that's a big concern or a small concern or a medium-sized concern.
I think drainage in general on the site has proven historically with the old house that the natural pitch of the land comes from west to east and slams the west wall of the house. That's where the foundation is cracked. That's where they get water in the basement stairwell. That's where there's a lot of the structural damage to the existing house. The way that this is a good two-part question because of the impermeability and the drainage. The house presently is very much more a long rectangle, so it blocks water. It just once it hits, it's done. There's a poured aggregate pool deck that goes all the way around. There's much more hardscape in the backyard, so therefore water, as we all know, seeks the lowest point. So it had to go around the existing pool shed and the pool complex. And where did it go? But to the west end of the house where the kitchen, mudroom, garage is, and to the screen porch at the other end. So what we've done with this new landscape is we've provided hardscape that actually floats, in essence, around the pool. So there's actually more green space between the pool and the west property line, more green space at the south end of the pool, and we've taken a dividing wall of a garden wall out that separated the north garden from the west garden. So there's much more percolation and much more distribution of water naturally now with the new house than there is with the existing house with the existing hardscape. When we were hired on as the Crawfords graduated from a garden designer to a landscape architect in the process. And what we pointed out is all of the things that a landscape architect, has nightmares about. And when we saw the split garage, we noticed that at the west end of the house, yes, one could go in and out of those garages with three-point turns, but if somebody's late for a train, they're not going to make a three-point turn. They're going to hit the garage or a parked car near or whatever. So we actually advocated for that additional backout space that's next to the southernmost garage, and that's for turnaround, but also for auxiliary parking of a housekeeper or an au pair or something. The interesting thing about how big this property feels is how massive the front yard is. And with the restriction of not being able to park in the front and not being able to park on Lake Road, we need to accommodate life on this property. So by tucking it into that back corner, we actually have put a retaining wall with a tile in the pavement to drain that pavement back to Lake Road, where right now it actually pitches off and drains to the south neighbor.
Okay.
So it's one reason why those arborvitaes are happy, but it's also the same reason why the arborvitaes have no bottom branches, because they're drowning on their way up.
So it sounds like it's manageable / maybe kind of trending towards being improved, and you're not
It's
concerned.
absolutely
Is that
improved.
a fair statement?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks.
You bet.
Any other questions from other commissioners on the new design or the landscape plan, or do you want to open it up to public comment? Okay. So now's the time for folks in the public to come on up and provide feedback, questions, comments. If there's anybody here that wants to say anything, please come on up and introduce yourself. And okay, I see none. Going once, going twice. Okay. Oh no, here we go. Please, sir, come on up and please speak into the microphone and introduce yourself and where you live, so the folks at home know who you are. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Peter Bensinger. My wife Judy and I live at 600 Mayflower, not on Lake Road, but we're around the corner. And I have had the pleasure and appreciate living in Lake Forest since 1982. Appreciate the important work that the commission does. I served as a member and chair of the Police and Fire Commission during my life here. And
Thanks for your service.
when someone mentioned an 80-year-old grandperson, I was thinking of myself. But I'm supportive
see some
of
ID, yeah.
I'm supportive of this project. I'm no expert on historic preservation, but I'm impressed with a neighbor that's gone to the trouble of developing the kind of expertise that has been presented here. I love the design. I drive by Lake Road all the time. We go to the beach and head up north. And I think the Crawfords should stay in this same location with a new design, and I would be supportive of this project. I also appreciated your approach to the project and the timing. And we're doing some demolition in another part of the world, and I know that the sooner you can get started, the better it is. But thank you for letting me share my views.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate the comments. Thank you very much. Are there other folks that want to provide any comments or? Okay, great. So now's a time for us to deliberate and to share our thoughts. And I guess maybe we would start on the existing structure and the demolition criteria around us. We have our card here, and we're all familiar with the criteria, but I'll maybe start to my right and ask Commissioner Schaefer if he has any thoughts and wants to share. First, let's just talk as a commission about the demolition and see if folks are comfortable with the facts that we've been presented and the criteria that we're obligated to evaluate, that's an okay decision.
Thank you, Jim. I agree with the staff recommendation that I think the 5 criteria set out by the ordinance for demolition are met.
Okay, great, thank you. So, Commissioner Wheeler.
Thanks, Jim. Yes, I'm also in agreement. I think they've outlined a couple of hardships here that have to be addressed with the new construction, such as maybe make sure that the foundation is on stable ground and the drainage is working for the property, and all of those level changes on the first floor. I understand those are all potential lawsuits. That's what I was told in architecture school. And the master bedroom on the first floor, I think, is a great opportunity here to have that.
Okay.
that
On the
amenity.
demolition, you're not sorry to see that structure go based on our criteria.
No, not at all.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Travers.
Sure. I was very pleased that this complete package included a historic preservation consultant's report and structural engineer's report as required by ordinance. And I thought especially the historic preservation consultant's report argued very persuasively that the demolition of this structure met the requirements of the ordinance.
Thank you. I concur, and so I'm not going to elaborate on that. So I'm fine with the demolition. Commissioner Alfie, how do you feel?
Yes, I think this meets the criteria that we have for demolition, so I support that.
Okay, and Commissioner Gale?
I would support it too for all the reasons that have been stated, although I admit to liking the warmth of the red brick, even though that clearly seems not to be. But nonetheless, I think that you made a very persuasive case for the unworkability of the house.
Yeah.
For the
Great.
family that's in it.
Great. Okay, great. So on that one, I think that you can't get clearer feedback on that, so we're in support of that. And then on the new structure, I'll start. I'm in support of the directional project, of the architecture and the massing and the site plan. I'm very, just optimistic on the project and in support of it. I think with Craig Bergman on your team in the back and other just loose ends will be tied up nicely. So, I think directionally it's really conforming to the design standards that we need to look at, and just given its location, the time and the judicious nature that you put into it with all the neighbors and the adjacent property owners and working with the city and getting a great team is really, really encouraging. I'll say over my 6 years on the commission, Craig has been in front of us on a number of occasions, and I think I've seen several projects that have been directionally really strong, but have had additional added value through his creativity and input. So, while I think we could approve it tonight if there was some flushed out work in the back on the pool house, I do think it will be time well spent to put the finishing touches on it, so it's a home that you'll really enjoy and have forever, and he can really put his fingerprints on it. And so I'm generally very supportive. Anybody else would like to share their comments or feedback?
Well, I would just say I was unable to identify any aspect of the design which didn't comply with city design guidelines and the ordinance, and so that led me to be, and also it's obviously a gorgeous structure, and so that led me to be favorably inclined towards acting favorably on this. The only thing I would add to that is, especially given the near location of the site to Forest Park, that to the extent the landscape designer and others could examine opportunities to decrease impermeable surface area through pavement selection, or to decrease any possible adverse impact of increased impermeable surface area through landscaping features like rain gardens, that might be something that could be good.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Alfie, how are you feeling about the new design of the project?
Well, I would have liked to have seen the two one-story wings more balanced, but the rationality of the plan makes sense, and I think is more important to make it work than otherwise.
Okay. And are you comfortable? So we didn't really do a deep dive on the materials, but I think we all read the packet. I mean, both Wells and Bob, are you fairly comfortable with the materials selected? It sounded like the petitioner did a fair amount of homework on adjacent properties and Lake Road, but just in terms of the compatibility and the integration between the materials and the use of it specific to the site, do you feel fairly comfortable on that?
Yes, I do. I think it's, I'm sure there's quite a few examples that would be, seemingly similar in the neighborhood, so I think it fits in very well.
Okay.
I'm thinking that, we do have the light-colored house to the south, and then the new house that took over the old Ike Coburn site is also of a light material. So I usually like to see some variety. So as Carol had mentioned, the warmth of the brick, I was impressed with that. So, and that helps, in my mind, to keep the scale down.
You're talking about the existing home.
On the existing home, exactly. So I probably would have been more in favor of the brick solution. But that's, other than that, I have a personal feeling that maybe we have too much Georgian in this town. So, but I'm not going to let that influence my decision. But I think this is really well detailed, and there was a good point that maybe we're at the point where we could make a decision on it. I don't see that sending it back at this point. I mean, as an architect, I'd be horrified to have to redo the whole process.
Yeah, I think I think, at least my point of view on where the project is there's some finishing touches in the back in the pool house, and it may afford Craig some more sink time into the property, and it is just 4 weeks. But it sounds like you're supportive of it, even though your preference personally as an architect or as a layperson, you enjoy the warmth of the existing brick, but there's nothing that, in terms of our 17 design criteria, another thing that stands out in terms of massing or other issues. So you're in favor of?
No, and I like the way the footprint pretty much matches the old footprint. The landscape has had a chance to develop over the years, and we're not impacting that so much with this. In fact, I think that part's done.
Okay.
So
All
anyway,
right. Commissioner Schaefer, would you like to share your thoughts?
I appreciate the work done here. It's just first rate, and great team that you've assembled. Great job on that. I guess the only question that I have that's major is just this proportion of the front facade that the staff points to, and Bob mentioned. And I'm wondering if maybe part of the benefit of not pulling the trigger tonight, is there a way that even through landscaping, because I noticed you had it on one of the photos up there, that even some of the landscaping in the front may help mitigate the, especially on the south side of it, that the south wing is as big as the main structure. Is there a way for landscaping to mitigate at least that?
Are you concerned on the streetscape or the neighbor to the south, or what?
No, I'm just looking at our second design criteria is the proportion of the front facade, and it was highlighted by the staff report as not fully meeting the standard. And I guess my question or challenge would be, is there a way that, and I understand, and Bob mentioned the requirements that you went through, or the thought process that which I appreciate, and I understand the reason why you're presenting it. I guess my question or challenge is can the landscaping design somehow mitigate at least the streetscape look at that?
Yes, and I think that we have addressed that. We have added extra ornamental trees and shrubbery all around this south elevation. And again, we pushed that wing farther back. I think Craig's looking for the final elevation.
I saw it there somewhere. But I'm in support of it. I mean, it's a wonderful design.
We did add extra. We realized that mass was very large, and the house itself is only about 12 feet longer than the house that is existing on site, and it has almost the same layout. The south wing is longer because of the garage, and we have added extra ornamental trees and shrubbery around the south to kind of filter that view from Lake Road, and then it rebalances the site back onto that center mass as well. So that's where your focus stays.
Thank you.
You can see there, it's there in the orange, by the garage, the orange trees that Craig has added in around to filter that garage view.
And I think one of the things that people need to realize is that even though Natalie and Jill have developed the house to be so complete looking in graphics, seldom does the landscape plan at this point of approval have the same finish. So the hardscape of all the hardscape, one of the reasons I loved hearing someone, Mr. Travers, saying work on maybe reducing some of the impermeables. We've given you the worst case scenario. as an educated landscape architect, you don't ask for one thing and come back for more hardscape, you know? So, you know, we, because of the history of working with commissions and building departments, you know, we maximized what we needed, and then we will refine to make the artwork. So the same thing will happen with the plantings. The symmetric paired trees in front, you know, upon initial installation, they'll be 25 feet tall and, you know, 18 feet wide, but in 5 years, they'll be 30 feet tall and 25 feet wide. All of a sudden, that focus to the center front symmetric box will be very dramatic. And right now, if you drive by the present house, the service drive seems actually bigger than the front entry drive because of the way the fork off the road has to get you to circumnavigate around the big garage. And just the idea of reducing the massive wing by 90-degree orienting the garage doors helps me have more green space to conceal the service wing. And it gives a more dramatic effect for the Crawfords when they're in their new screen porch to look through a landscape across the road, across the park to the lake. And it intimizes their experience as well. So there's a lot of what I call veil planting that will happen. That'll kind of give that illusion of softening the newness of the structure.
Thanks, appreciate that.
Sure.
Commissioner Gale, do you have any comments you'd like to share?
I'm really appreciative of the landscape design and protecting that tree, which I gather is really a fine tree. And the additional, it does, in your rendering, it does seem as though there is veil, veil planting in the front, particularly in front of the wing down here.
I do have to tell you that I live in a warm brick Georgian house. I love it. You know, it's a matter of giving the client what she's looking for, and if you have an idea of the old Morris Ely estate in Lake Bluff, and Tom and Jane O'Neill live in the big house, and then the Hales and Missy Dursey used to live in the wing that was reconverted. That limestone and whitewashed brick combination was the impetus for the selection you see here. So it's not meant to be Chicago common, it's meant to be multicolored red brick whitewashed in various ways. So you will get a warmish tone, actually I think warmer than what the artist's rendering looks like. When you look at those bricks, there's more warmth to it.
And I think the tones create almost like they just blend into each other's milky, almost. It's very beautiful on that home, and I believe it'll be very beautiful on this home.
Okay. I have a question for you. Do you have any questions for us in terms of being more specific around feedback around the new design? I feel like people are generally supportive, and it sounds like any issues that are being raised around front facade and the left wing mass is being addressed, and that, you know, there's work around the pool house, but in general, you know, it's very favorable, the feedback. And of course, on the demolition, I think you got unanimous support. So I would, you know, say very encouraged by the project, and we'll see you when you come back. I mean, that's fair enough. So we're gonna continue, but unless anybody else wants to provide additional feedback to alter the work or any design issues that they see, at least that's what I heard. So please chime in if there are other things that you would like them to focus on or work on, or even explore for the next meeting.
I do have a question. Who will be giving us that guidance? The
I'm sorry?
commission? Who will be giving us that guidance? Is it the commission or certain commissioners?
Well, hopefully, I mean, that was my question, I guess. Hopefully, this session was to give you general feedback on the project, And I tried to summarize that for you. And then I'm asking other commissioners if there's any other feedback for you, but generally supportive of the new design if the left wing massing is continued to be addressed with the landscaping, the impervious surfaces are tried to be minimized, and there's continued buy-in with the adjacent property owners as the structures in the back are completed, then I think, it's directionally going in the right place. Does anybody have anything to add to that? Is that
I'm okay with that. Do
Fairly
either of
good.
you have any questions?
I'll keep my questions specific to landscape. Is there any anything that stands out as being inappropriate in your mind, or something that you would like to see an alternate for, or whatever? Because interestingly, you're much more scrutinizing in words historically. So if someone says you're doing a great job, wait a month, it's hard for us to understand where it's coming from unless it's just coming from process. If it's process, I understand it. I'm not through with my finished landscape plan, and you know that.
Yeah.
So, for the next set of plans that come to the city, and if they come back to HPC or building department, whatever, there will be a much more refined interpretation of the landscape. So, but if that's the guidance, is bone up on the landscape and the structure's fine, and think about the front entry or the color of your front door, whatever it is. I mean, I think that it would be fair to an architect. Interesting, an architect says, if you're not going to give me direction, it'd drive me nuts. I think that's what you're kind of hearing is, clear direction would help us vet issues that may be stumbling blocks for us in the next stage of the game. I mean, the landscape part.
Right, it's a difference between a fully baked design, both landscape and structures in the back, versus structural issues around the direction that we'd like you to address and have had issues with based on what we've seen. And I didn't hear anything on the latter.
Yeah.
So I guess that's really good feedback. We don't design the projects, but the best kind of feedback we can give you is that there's nothing that we see that's objectionable based on the 17 design criteria that we have to factor in to approve projects.
But does the design of an auxiliary structure stall the approval of the main structure? I mean, I'm thinking of the client and progressing through something substantive.
Yeah, I think the only issue I heard on the existing structure or the main structure was the front facade and the balance and its proportionality, and it sounds like that concern isn't really heightened to the point where there's a structural issue, but we would like to see it mitigated with landscaping, and you're addressing that concern. So,
that can be a
that's my
contingency,
point of view.
Yeah.
And I guess Commissioner Schaefer raised it, so I want to make sure that you're comfortable with that and everybody else.
Sure.
I agree.
Yeah, typically, we're mostly concerned about the screening and framing views. And I think Craig has shown, he's concerned about that too.
Yeah, so I would, to fully refine the landscape plan, address the impermeable surfaces as best you can, given the feedback from Commissioner Travers, and finish the structure in the back, and work with the staff to do that.
Yeah.
Kathy, do you have a comment?
Two different thoughts. One, it would also be helpful to be clear. I understand that what you presented tonight, the elevations were slightly different than what was in the packet, so we want to be sure we just have the correct elevations.
Okay.
If the commission chooses to move it forward, I've heard a number of things that you could add as conditions. Well, I guess either way, if you wanted to approve it, they could be conditions. If you wanted to continue it, they could be conditions that provide direction. I heard a request for perhaps a rendering that gave a truer representation of the brick color. It sounds like what's intended is not quite as white as perhaps it appears, which could help with that whole perceived massing. I heard an interest in exploring some impervious surface, perhaps a portion of the driveway or that parking area. Some of that could become pervious to help with the drainage issue with an appropriate base. I heard maybe some further clarification on the landscaping in front to make sure that that mass of that front elevation or the scale proportions are appropriately filtered. And then details on the accessory structure, which we don't yet have. And those could be handled either way, as conditions of a continued petition, if you feel comfortable, and you give us guidance on whether you were looking at the elevations in the packet or the elevations that were in the presentation, you could move it forward with direction to the staff to review those items. So I would, either
Kathy?
way you want to approach it, staff is comfortable with that.
Clarify something?
Yeah.
The elevations are not different. There's just more of them than what was turned in with your original packet. And we did supplement that with the packet that we passed out today. Those have all the new elevations. But
Yeah, thank you for that, because that's important. And I think, to correct your question, it's more process in terms of, I think, the feedback that you're getting. And we tend to want to make sure that the city is comfortable and gotten all of the I's and T's crossed in terms of the level of detail that they'd like for us to consider a complete petition. And I think the accessory structure design is probably, the biggest issue. The only one you added to what we talked about, Kathy, was just, the renderings on the material and the brick and the finish and the look of it. Is anybody on the commission very concerned about that?
Not really.
Well, I'll speak as a non-architect. I can see some of the materials in front of me here, which I think give me a better idea of what they're talking about than perhaps the drawings.
Is anybody concerned that we would approve this with the condition that the petitioner works with the city staff to approve the accessory structure and its final design? Is anybody concerned about that condition?
I'm not.
No.
Okay.
yes, and just to add, we have.
Well, I think you're gonna like where we're going.
Yeah, I was just wanting to add,
I don't know you need
we
to add
plan to
anything.
fully comply on whatever you need for that additional structure
Okay.
as well.
And we could certainly bring the additional structure, since it is a new structure in the historic district, we could bring that back later. I'm sure it won't be the first piece of the project that gets under construction. So we could certainly bring that back to you at a future date. In fact, we could also bring a final landscape plan back to you at that point, if that would give you greater comfort.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm very supportive of this. I'm very supportive of this project. I also recognize that this may be the seminal viewpoint of our whole city in terms of lakefront. And I don't mind going the extra mile here to make sure that we are really careful in this and not put all the onus on the staff to make those final determinations. And an example, Kathy, maybe, have we talked about your standard 4, the rhythm of solids to voids? Did we talk about that tonight? I don't recall that we have, and staff has brought that up as not appearing to be meeting the standard in the ordinance. And I just cite that as an example that it would be great to give the staff 30 days to work with the petitioners just to make sure that we've locked everything down on this.
yeah,
There is 1.3 of further refinement and simplification of the proportions and architectural detailing on the front entry. We didn't discuss that, it was raised by the staff.
yeah. Yeah, so I mean, I think Kathy did a nice job of articulating our strategies. I mean, we could motion for a continuance, and I think we were very specific around the items that are outstanding or just more process issues to further review. And if you have any questions on those, we can cover them again, or we can make those criteria as part of our approval, and the staff could bring back the accessory structure to us. I kind of in the camp of Peter. I mean, it's just let's wait to get it fully baked. It is 30 days, I know, and sometimes time is of the essence, but it'll give Craig some time to finalize things and to come back. But very positive feedback. Unless I'm asking the commissioners, unless you say let's just approve it tonight, I'm open to that motion. It's just I can't make that motion, so I'm going to leave it to you guys to ascertain what's the right motion.
Well, I was inclined in that direction, but I was interested to hear from Commissioner Wheeler, being an architect, how he felt about that at this point.
I was kind of heading in that direction. I have some reservations about, in the staff report, the concern over the entry. I mean, I would want to see a little less elaborate detailing. But the design is, I think it's not inappropriate. And I just hate to push this off too much longer.
It's getting warm.
Yeah, I mean, there's two issues. One, do we have does the city staff have all the materials and the design documents to the level of detail that we need to serve our function as commissioners to approve projects? The fact that the landscape plan isn't fully baked and the accessory structure design is not done, kind of lends me to that. Yeah. And if there's a huge objection, unless the commissioners, if there's a time urgency to the petitioner, then I think, Bob, you tell us that and then we'll deliberate. But if you're okay with another 30 days with the positive feedback you've gotten, then that's kind of the direction I'm leaning, but I'm open.
Jim, can I say a word or two? Thank you. This has been terrific. We've really appreciated this thorough vetting of this project. One of the things we're facing is why many people leave here in the latter part of each year is winter. Mm-hmm. And, is there any creative way that we know there's some issues and we acknowledge them. I think your comments about these were very appropriate regarding the design and of course the little pool facility we'll have in the back. But is there any way that imaginative that we can get started, so to speak, in getting prepared for demolition, knowing, any way we can shortcut this, because we're scared to death about, the winter. Yeah. And we were hoping, that if there's some creative way, and we appreciate this tremendous staff, these people have been great. Yeah. And all we're trying to do is ability to, get started, at least the process. We don't have to dig the whole dirt before the next meeting, but if there's any way we can move,
so I think
great. Thank you very much.
To me, the best strategy, Bob, to that point, and is let's just kind of bifurcating the site plan and landscape plan and the main structure, and establishing some criteria to approve that, and then maybe we see the accessory structure at another time. Kathy, what do you think of that?
And I would also offer, there is a process for submitting for demolition, and protective fencing needs to go up, and you need to contact the utilities. So that process could get underway now, so that the day after the next commission meeting, they could be on site demolishing the house.
Yeah, so let's just look for a motion to approve the demolition of the existing structure, and let's look for a motion that approves the main new structure, with the caveat and the condition that the petitioner will work with the staff to fully vet and produce the landscape plan with the idea to shade the massing of the left wing. Let's also put a caveat to try to minimize the impervious surface where appropriate. And I think those are really the big issues. And then let's continue the accessory structure, or just that'll come back when it's done. And can we do that?
You can do anything you want. What I've heard is perhaps if we work with the Crawfords to get the permit submitted for the demolition, you wouldn't have given it final approval, but we can begin the work in prepping the site for demolition. This would come back to you as a whole with focus on the items you've identified, and then at the next meeting, you could approve the demolition and the entire project. The next day, they would be ready to actually start the demolition work if everything fell in line. Normally, after your approval, there is a lag time before a permit can be issued because utilities don't show up there overnight and various other things.
So you don't want to bifurcate the accessory structure with the approval of the main structure and the demolition.
I've heard different things. I've heard certainly this is a very prominent site, and making sure I understand maybe the elevations haven't changed, but you got a packet today that we haven't seen.
Okay.
So I just want to be sure we all know what we're looking at.
Okay. All right. Well,
but you can proceed any way you want if you want to approve.
I mean, if it's
part of
six
it, you
half
can
dozen,
certainly do that.
six half dozen the other in terms of the timeline, then let's just start the long pole in the tent around the permits for the demolition and have a motion to approve that and start working around those, along that dimension, and then have the complete plan come back with the issues that we've raised to be approved at the next meeting. So let's just. I mean, that's an approach. I mean,
so Chairman, are we continuing or are we approving? Because we can't approve a demolition without the replacement plan unless there's no plan for replacement within 5 years.
well, that's why I was debating and thinking about coupling the main structure and the existing demolition together and then approving that and then continuing the accessory structure.
Do you want me to try something and see if people like it or not?
Sure.
No, I mean, I can't do the motion, so.
No, I mean, I
Yeah.
can.
Yeah, so go ahead,
Okay.
yeah, okay.
So why don't I try something and see if people like it, and if this is what staff likes and what you like. The way this motion might read, if we were going to make it, would be to say, based on the findings detailed in the applicable staff report dated April 27, 2016, which document that the project complies with the standards in the Historic Preservation Ordinance of the City Code and incorporating the material submitted and presented by the petitioner and the testimony and deliberations of the commission at this public meeting as additional findings, I move that the commission grant a certificate of appropriateness for demolition of the existing residence and replacement with a new residence at 676 Lake Road, and condition its approval on the normal and customary conditions of approval attendant on similar projects, as well as the additional conditions that the petitioner consult with city staff to reduce project impermeable surface area and/or mitigate the impact of any increase in impermeable surface area, the design of an accessory structure, refinement of the front entrance, refinement of landscape screening. What else do we need?
I think that's.
Standard 7.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, standard
covers
7. How about 7?
And so if people will accept that, I'll put that out there as a motion.
So
about-
moved by Commissioner Travers. Do I have a second?
Do you want to add gutters and downs?
Well, no, the standard 7, why do I have standard 7? It's, oh, wait, not standard 7, it's
Oh,
standard 5. Well, wait, hold on here. Oh, here it is 4,
okay.
the rhythm of solids to voids.
So there's a motion on the table, and I'd, does everyone understand the motion?
Kind of, because in the preamble, John, you mentioned that the staff report says that it meets the standards of the ordinance, but that's not what their report says. They've bulleted out portions where the standard appears not to be fully met.
Okay.
So Can I throw an alternative?
Yeah, why don't
Because
you do it?
if, they want to get moving, Kathy's given a suggestion on how they can get moving here to get the fencing up and stuff, to get it going. You've got a lot of support here, Bob. Go on. I mean, we don't have a staff report recommending this. And I don't want to, I'm just talking personally, we rely a lot on their expertise and their day-to-day expertise on this. And I would move to adjourn for 30 days, subject to all of the feedback that we've given. Give the petitioner the opportunity to prepare for demolition, and then in 30 days, work with the remaining outstanding items that you've mentioned, and then add on to that number 4, the rhythm and solids, again, to work with the staff, to have them come back and present it, hopefully with a staff recommendation at that point. That would be my recommendation. That would be my motion if I can get a second.
I'm sorry, but both 4 and 6 are ones that, the staff would like to talk a little more. But
Yeah, I mean, you guys-
give them some assurance on that we are fundamentally in support of this, including the first step, which is the demolition. And I understand what, our limitation that we can't approve
Right.
demolition
Right.
without also approving a replacement structure, but I can understand their sense that is there some way that we can give them some assurance?
My sense is you've already given them pretty clear
Yeah.
assurance that you support the demolition. With that, we can accept an application for demolition, get working on the steps. In the meantime, make sure we're all clear on what's proposed, look at the final refinements, bring this back in 30 days, and then be ready the next day to issue the demolition permit.
I mean, I
So
guess-
to do that, it would simply be a continuation consistent with Commissioner Schaefer's motion.
So we have 2 motions, but no seconds.
Okay,
So you're moving to continue?
I'm moving to continue.
Okay,
So does somebody want to second that?
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so moved. Hopefully, we've given you good feedback to tie it up in
This is,
a bow, and thank you for your patience and
Yeah, and
working
thank
through
you
it
for
with
your
us. and,
time.
That's an exciting project.
Thank you.
Very exciting.
thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I mean,
Thank you.
really.
Okay,
That'd be nice.
the next agenda item is consideration for a request for a certificate of appropriateness for additions to the side and rear of the existing residence located at 1290 North Sheridan Road. And so if you could please come on up and introduce yourself and speak into the microphone. We're going to have 10 minutes of a report out from you and then a staff report, and then we'll ask questions. Thank you.
Okay.
Is the team on site, Kathy, do you know? They're out in the hallway, or?
Chairman, may I ask a favor? I'd like to actually take about 2 minutes.
Okay.
Well, you
All
got
right,
time. but it
well,
looks like nobody's here.
we're going to, as a motion to take a 2-minute break for a restroom, and we'll get the petitioner settled.
proposing is an addition, and we'll get into the details of that in just a minute. But introducing you to the property is a private road. Entrance is looking east and west down that private road. On the bottom right, you can begin to see the property, the subject property. It's an existing house. Actual construction is 1925. It's considered a French eclectic style, but it really should probably be falling into a category of European eclectic style. It has almost English country look. It's a romantic style combination of gables, hips, clipped gables, and these forms kind of ebb and tide and play romantically throughout the design of the existing home. The front is rather more formal, though. When you come up, it's got a pattern of the steep gable dormers, and then off to the east, there's a one-car garage and a breezeway. The rear elevation, again, is a little bit more playful, romantic. It's got bays, it's got gables, it's got hips and different forms. If again on the bottom right, you'll see a rear elevation that shows to the left-hand side an existing family room. And it'll be in our proposal to take down that existing family room and build a new, more appropriate family room with a bedroom above. That family room was built, I think, in 1987. Windows inconsistent with the style. Brick didn't match. Really a very insensitive addition to the project. The side elevations, the one on the far right, east side, and then the west side is the center, and then the front door, just a detail that seemed to just fill the page. And neighborhood, there's a existing private road with, I think there's 5 homes completing a short private road. And again, each style is a little bit more eclectic than the next. Construction dates differ and vary. The one right across the street, though, we're convinced is by the same architect and has some of the same features. And that house in particular is the one on the upper left. Existing plan, won't bore you with that. But, and currently there's some interior renovations taking place. We've currently updating some of the exterior. We're putting a new roof on it. There's been a lot of unkept elements to the house, fascias and friezes of rotting boards and what have you, but that's currently under renovation. There in the center, you can see that existing family room and how inappropriate that is to the design. In the upper, the next 3 floor plans indicate where the demolition is taking place, and you can see in the upper section that's a crawl space for that family room. Again, the floor plan for that shows the family room being proposed to be demolished. And then you see on the far right there's an existing 1-car garage, and that dates back to the original. That garage was even too small to fit a conventional car. At some point, they added a shed off the back. You can see it kind of bumping out. That just has a shed roof, and again, the construction type was inappropriate. The materials didn't match. So in our new proposal to do a 3-car garage along that side, you can see that that bubble indicates where the demolition might be taking place. And those are the roof plans. The site has an existing 2 curb cuts and kind of a front drive-through. The area cross-hatched in the back is where the addition is taking place. And then on the east side, we're projecting out about 8.5 feet to provide for a 3-car side-load garage. You'll see the driveway entrance for that. In the darker line, that's kind of a change from what was originally proposed. We've had city foresters out to look at the property a couple of times, maybe as many as 3, to give a recommendation for driveway locations. And originally we had it in one location. It was decided later that we might be able to save an extra tree by shifting it a little bit further to the south and east. But currently there are 3 trees there. I'll have a fellow from Mariani talk about the condition of those trees. And then the one tree that you'll see in the crossed-hatch section, that's the only tree that needs to be taken out for the addition itself. And it's just too close to the house, and it's leaning and what have you. But that's the proposal. There's screening along the east, screening along the north on the property contiguous to Sheridan School. And then from what we've agreed to the city is the trees that come down, we're doing double inch per inch, which is twice what the city ordinance requires. So we're going to provide ample screening. We're going to supplement with evergreens and ornamentals, which are not particularly prevalent on the property. The understory trees would probably stand to be increased, but there are ample amount of the older overstory wooded sections of the property. There's a rendering of the same drawing. And there's lawn areas that we're keeping as is. There's an old slab, a tennis court in the back. We're removing that and planting in that area as well. From a neighborhood standpoint, you can see the property in the center. It's labeled subject property. And then there's there's 4 houses in the court itself, and the 5th house is a house that's, to make up that, the entirety of that section is actually off of Sheridan Road. 3-dimensional perspective of what it might look like from the east section looking toward the property. You'll see the addition of the garage, which is maintaining as much of the existing as possible, and I can talk about that when we get into the proposal. And then looking from the west property, showing the addition. So the addition basically off the back, and as I mentioned, about 8.5 feet off of the side, would include a slab for the garage, and then a basement for family recreation functions. Again, the addition is a breakfast, family, and mudroom with an increase in the 1-car garage to a 3-car garage, but very much a standard lifestyle that everybody in Lake Forest enjoys, and one that the client, Mr. Zardani, particularly needs. He has 6 children. He grew up in Lake Forest, lived 20 years on the east side, and is very sensitive to everything that has to do with preservation. In fact, that's his profession. He's a developer of residential homes and compliments himself on his work with restoring and preserving as much of the natural Lake Forest character that we all love. But lifestyle set aside, we have a family of 8 and a home that doesn't really accommodate all that much. Bedrooms and spaces above on the 2nd floor would be, I'll show you on the elevation, but we're improving the master and then adding a couple of bedrooms. The house addition is accomplished through a series of, again, kind of a romantic mix of hips and gables. I'll show you on the elevation how that balance and the human scale that it creates. But basically, we're keeping the front intact as is and making a simple modification to the side. On the right, you'll see what we're extending out to do a side-load garage. The front-load garage that you see is the existing garage, and we're going to just keep that. That just suggests that the house has very little changes at all to the front of the house. And the side we're accomplishing through a matching brick, which is a Chicago Common that's going to be whitewashed with a limestone-based paint and maintain the same character of the existing brick. This roof over in this section, though, is going to have, I'm going to skip that one, whoops. If you see on the right, that first window above the first garage toward the left, that's the existing window. So we're going to keep the existing window. We're going to duplicate that same window off the back for the addition of another bedroom. And the extension of the garage is going to have a shallow pitch hip copper roof in that section. And that you can see again on the left. The section next to that, which is a match of what's existing, only extruded out to allow for the three-car garage, so that if you were standing in pure elevation, you would not see any difference in how that is. And in fact, we're going to reuse the existing windows. So that first section beyond where the garage is, and including the garage and the bedroom above, is an extrusion of the existing elevation. On the first floor, you'll see this arched window or arched door element with an arched window next to it. That's an existing element, but it's replicated, again, extruded out. So standing at the rear elevation, you wouldn't see any difference in it. We're going to keep the arch inside the building, so there's going to be this brick arch in the mudroom, but then we're going to pull that same detail out. So again, we're representing that there's really no change in the pure elevation. The window above that, the dormer, is existing window we're going to keep, and then we're going to swoop the roof out with copper, raised seam copper roof to make a cover over the extension of the mudroom. The family room is on the first floor, that center element. Bedroom above, fireplace for the family room and the rec room. But that becomes the central organizing hierarchical feature of the back. Currently, the back is just a flat wall with undulation of dormers and windows and bays, but now, as you can see in the model, represents kind of a center focus, and it also breaks up the mass of the back in that it's not just one wall anymore. It has a character on one side, and then as you come around where the addition of the breakfast room is, it has another kind of a cottage character to it. The breakfast room is the bay window with the conservatory look. We've adding copper raised seam to that, and that's a critical element as well as a shape of a room that's conducive to a breakfast room. What that copper roof does is it allows us to return it back and keep the elevation that's existing, so that the windows, the one over the stair landing and the other in the master bathroom, those windows are able to maintain without being interrupted by another roof element in there. Again, the side elevation, which we looked at for the garage, and then the side elevation indicating on the far left where the addition would be protruding from the existing elevation, the rear of the house as it's flat. So everything you see dotted there is the area of the addition. Section you don't care about. The model, I'm happy to pass it around so you can all twist and turn
Yeah,
it.
thanks. Good. Yeah, you could pass it around and then talk in the mic so the folks at home can hear. Thanks, John.
Sure. This one in particular just shows how the front is and how little impact that garage is off to the far side. And there it is on the forefront of that elevation. Right in the center of that, actually, on the second floor, you'll see a copper gutter and scupper and downspout. That's where the existing elevation stops. So in essence, we're kind of mirror imaging what's existing there and using that copper gutter and downspout to blend any, if there is any mortar difference or anything whatsoever. But that's pretty graphic on where the addition is and where the existing is. Again, on the rear, you'll see how these shallow pitch roofs with the raised seam copper allow us to keep the existing building intact and just kind of gradually roof over the spaces that we're projecting and extruding out. And this patio is going to be an important element to the lifestyle of the house. It's a space where the barbecuing and that kind of thing. There's a door with a little covered porch, and just the human scale of that breakfast room and how then the bay window and the interconnection to that has a really nice human scale to anybody entertaining or enjoying that outdoor space. And that's my presentation. If I could answer any questions, I'd be happy to. We do have Rob from Mariani's office that I'd like to talk about landscaping a little bit and the health and of the trees and what we might be doing with the hardscapes and driveway and that kind of thing.
Okay, let's do the staff report, and I think the questions will probably be focused on that as well as the design. Thanks. Kate, please, staff report. Thanks.
Thank you. So landscaping is one of the key concerns with this petition. It will require a total of 7 trees to be removed, 4 of which have been determined to be in good condition. The other 3, my understanding is that they are in poor or marginal condition. So that is an area of concern. We also received 2 emails from neighboring properties that they were concerned that they did not receive notices for the petition, so they were unaware of the project and the details. We have reviewed our mailing list and addresses. 38 properties were notified, however, including the 2 addresses of concern, we're unable to verify if they were delivered or not, but that is a concern. So we are we're recommending that based on this new information and concerns about the tree removal brought up both by the neighbors and in our office, as well as the fact that at least 2 people did not receive notices, staff is recommending that the petition be continued. This will allow time for our office to send out notices again for the petition, make everyone aware of it. And then we can also take a look at the modified driveway configuration that was shown this evening. And our city arborist can review that to see if it would in fact preserve another tree. Okay. So to conclude, we're recommending that the petition be continued.
Okay. And just as a caveat to that, does the notice issue cause you pause to support the demolition of the 2 substructures, or is that something that you feel okay about?
The neighbors' concerns were not brought up as far as the removal of the rear additions. Staff did not have any concerns about that from a design or architectural perspective because they're inconsistent with the house and at least one of them is not historic. So that we didn't have any pause with that issue.
Okay. Okay. And maybe, John, if there's a way to just communicate the process of the design and if there was an opportunity to share it with any of the neighbors at all, or, I think part of what we try to do as a commission is, we have the design criteria, but we also look for for neighbors to, to reach out and kind of work together, because, change, no matter where it is, and I'm the first in line, it's tough, right? Especially if you haven't heard about it. So I'm just curious if others have heard about it, or if there was any process to talk to people, or if that didn't happen, just try to
I'm
understand
going to
it.
have Mr. Zardani address that, because he does have, I think, some support from neighbors.
Okay.
But with the addition being on the rear of the house, the contiguous neighbor to the rear is Sheridan School. So, the conversation there is almost nil or non-existent. But I'll have Don address some of the other concerns.
Yeah.
Hi,
Hi.
Don Zerdani.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening. In the little private lane, there's shared, 4 homes. All 3 of the neighbors that reside currently were notified. They've seen the process. We've lived in the house for 2.5 years, so it's not something that just came out overnight. The house across the street's been for sale, and the current owner that sent a letter in behalf from a neighbor to a block or so down the street has been trying to sell the house for about 5 or 6 years. So they vacation and they come back and forth, and the house is pretty much vacant. There's not much furniture left. So we did address this, what our plans were. We've met with the neighbors, and there was a letter that was sent off to Kate today with support from the neighbors supporting the project. The neighbor to the east, that owns part of the property coming in the lane. My responsibility was to give the petition, the package and everything to staff, which we did accordingly. I don't feel it's fair that we should be penalized on something, because if there's a support of the construction and there's something that's an issue of a tree or so that we're working out with staff, I think that it's only fair. We're burdening, we've moved out of the house and we're renting a house in the area. We have children that are coming back from college, and we're trying to expedite this process. They've been more than fair to accommodate. I've worked in this town for over 18 years. Never had a problem with staff. We've always had a good relationship, and the quality product that we build supports what we do. So I'm not sure a letter from somebody stating that they didn't receive it when it went out to notice to 38 residents, I think I was told just now. I don't think that has merit. And we have addressed the issue of trying to save 3 more additional trees that was shown on that additional curb cut that was changed slightly, not curb cut, but to the detached garage. So we've also stepped to the plate, and we're willing to address the tree ordinance double, inch for inch. So, we're addressing everything. We've put heavy screening on the back, which Rob could comment on.
Yeah.
We've addressed the issue from our neighbor's pool house and pool that is to the east of our property. The siting of the neighbor's house to the east does not look at the garage. If you look at it, it's skewed on an angle. So we've been very sensitive to the neighbor that is going to see maybe some of the impact. So.
Okay, thanks.
Okay,
Appreciate
thank
it. Yeah. If you could maybe spend some time talking about the landscape plan along the perimeter on the east lot line, and any other properties that are adjoining, that would be great.
Hi, I'm Rob Schwarz. I'm a licensed landscape architect with Mariani Landscape. And so we were involved originally with the tree survey, and we located all the trees. There were 30 trees in the vicinity of the addition, and they ranged in species from oaks to red maples, black cherry, elms, but the predominant tree out there they are oaks, some of which are of good quality and some are marginal. As was mentioned earlier, the original submittal had the removal of 7 trees, and those were oak trees, or are oak trees, and the revised driveway configuration saves an additional 2 trees. So there would only be 5 trees removed to facilitate this improvement. In terms of the screening, at the top of the page in the center, all those are evergreens. And from our original design, a slight modification on this plan, our plan had a higher density, and those would be what we call deer-proof arborvitaes. That area has a high presence of deer pressure, so we'd want to put anything that we propose would be something that we'd want to stand the test of time. So in that area, the density probably be twice that, and the intention was to be able to provide privacy of the garage area from the neighbors to the east. So being very respectful overall to that concern. In terms of the other plantings, as Don Zerdani mentioned, we would be accommodating the double replacement ratio for any trees that were coming out. There are some, as Don also mentioned, to the left side of the page, that's the school, and we were going to be beefing up the privacy between the school and the house, so that's an area that would not be objectionable. We really haven't addressed the hardscape as part of our initial plans, so that would be something that's still to come, but there's an existing patio that's shown to the bottom of the page off of the, I guess it would be the conservatory, and that would be a patio space. The driveway configuration overall currently, it's a chip and seal. It's a Merrimack stone that's pressed into the asphalt, and that same feeling, kind of that country style, would wrap around the garage and provide a very harmonious appearance and help prevent any kind of erosion from occurring.
And so you had mentioned that the driveway was being rerouted to save 2 trees, and the staff had said that initial plan was 7
Yes.
to be removed, and 4 were of good quality. Of the trees that are being taken out now, the 5, what are their condition and quality in your judgment?
Yeah,
And
very
have you
good.
talked to the city arborist about that?
Yeah, so Mike Glomsky and I, we walked the property together, and there, at the center above the proposed garage addition, you can see 3 X's. The topmost one, that's an oak tree that's leaning, and it's leaning away, and it's also fused to the trunk, the tree to the left of that. So the tree to the left is a quality tree, but the fact that they're fused together, it makes them structurally weak. So over time, I do see that being problematic, and so those would be the ones that would be of the lower quality of the trees that are there. The other one that's to the bottom of that, I would rate that a B quality. I always, when I'm doing a tree survey and qualitative analysis, I'm looking at the overall health of the tree, the form. This was done in the winter, so we weren't able to detect if there were any kind of diseases, which oaks are common to have. But the winter form appeared healthy in terms of the trunk development. But structurally, those 2 were of concern, and the revised plan configuration of where the driveway extension comes in off of the main drive, there's 3 trees in there. Those are I would consider those B- quality, but we would be saving those. We'll be pushing the drive to extend the root system protection, and any work that were to be done there, I would recommend prior to excavation of the drive itself, that area would be root pruned, and so that what I found is when that an excavator would come in and remove the base, if it's not pre-cut, that root could get pulled. And it's best to be able to do that. It leads to the success of that. There would be 1 tree. John, where would I go to change to that revised plan? Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so here you can actually see the change. So the darker line at the top shows how we're saving the 3 trees that were originally proposed to be removed, and then we'd be removing 1 tree further to the right. So collectively, there's 4 trees that would come out for the new drive and 1 tree for the addition, whereas the prior proposal had 7 trees total.
Okay, so there's, so 5 trees coming out total, is that right?
5 trees coming out
And there's
total.
3 in the new drive, and then the 2, can you point to the 2 on the screen that are coming out? The location of them?
Sure.
Just so we're clear, I mean,
Oh, you got a laser?
the other 2, I see the 3 with the X's.
Yeah.
I'm just, can we just,
Okay, so. Okay. There we go. No. It's like too bright, I think. Oh, there it is. Okay. All right, so
There it
there's
is.
one.
That
That's part
guy,
of the
okay.
addition. Those are the 3
3.
that would come out. These 2 are the ones that are of the lower quality that I mentioned. They're fused together.
yeah,
And then over here, that one is a new one that we're proposing to remove for the purpose of saving this grouping of 3 right in here, which originally were proposed to be removed. So a total of
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5 for the drive and the addition total versus 7 originally proposed.
okay. And did you think of alternative plans for the garage and, or was this the only configuration that you really kind of gravitated towards, John, with the homeowners, or were there other alternatives considered? And
We're gonna double team you on that one. 'cause
Okay.
We, obviously, a 3-car front load would be an option.
Mr. Clerk, can you?
yeah, sorry.
A
I
3-car
think there's
front
people at
load.
home that
yeah.
always want to hear. So.
A 3-car front load would be something to consider and almost immediately throw it away. It would have a much greater impact to the historic elevation on the front, rather than coming out 8.5 feet. Now we'd be going over 20 feet. And the front load garage would just be devastating to those trees, and I think Rob can address those.
I would agree with John. If we were to extend the garage in this direction, bumping out, because currently, but let's remember, this is a breezeway. It's not a garage bay, which can be, from some of the elevations, it looked like it could be the garage, but it's really 1-car garage right now. So if we were to add 2-car garage in this direction, you can see all of those trees would have to come out. And to get the depth back in here, these trees would come out. So it would actually be more destructive and historically weaken the quality of the architecture in the historic neighborhood.
Thank you. Other questions for the staff or the petitioners from other commissioners?
I have one question. I have a letter here from doctors and their wives, Gordon and Lloyd. Are these neighbors of yours that are on the private lane, or are they more distant neighbors?
No, they're directly on the lane. The Gordons are the house immediately to the west, and Dr. Lloyd is directly in front to the south.
Could you repeat that, please?
Dr. Gordon is directly to the west,
Yes.
and Dr. Lloyd is directly to the south, all sharing the same private lane.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the landscape plan or the design and the kind of unifying structures that are being added, or any of the demolition? Or?
A couple of questions.
Yeah. Commissioner Alfie, please.
Couple of things. Did you give any consideration that seems kind of odd to still have the front-facing garage door when it's not going into the garage?
Yeah, we did waffle on that one. We just felt it was being more respective to the board's opinion of historic preservation and just preserving that look. I think our preference would be, we've talked about bricking it in and putting up, what's your landscape, apple pear or whatever you called it? A espalier plant or something. So maintaining the arch, recessing a similar brick, maybe putting some pattern on it, but then having a feature
I think that would be preferable.
I think
I
that
don't-
would be preferable for all of us as well. So we'd love to proceed that way, but
Also, I just had a question, the chimney that's now going to enclose what probably was a sheet metal stack,
yes,
what is that going to be made out of?
that's going to be brick as well.
So you're
Brick to
gonna
match
hang
the
some
house,
brick
yeah.
up there?
You won't know it from a different chimney other than the flue that's poking out.
And I really like the shape of the conservatory, particularly in plan. It just seems kind of awkward the way it hits that bay. I don't know if there's any way to rectify that, but it's kind of an awkward.
That's
juncture
actually
there.
the only way we can get to that. If you can see on here, it's not the plan, but it's in plan. This room is a living room, right? And the space above here is the stairs. There's a small hallway here that goes to an existing powder room, but that's going to be our formal entrance to this room is right through here, from the foyer, which is here.
I just wondered if there was any consideration of just making some sort of link that pulled that away a little bit.
We considered a flat roof in there, and that just felt so flat, and no pun intended, but, and then we considered doing something where we eliminated windows on the second floor, but again, it felt insensitive to the historic building, especially how important that landing, the stairs are, interior stairs are really nicely appointed with big newel posts and stuff like you'd expect out of a house at that era. And then at the landing, there's these beautiful windows. So we didn't want to block them, so we needed to do something that had a low profile roof element. So it just, you ask the architecture what it wants to be, and that's what it was telling me to do. So I think it creates another romantic human scale to an area where the outdoor patio and those barbecue functions are for sure to take place.
On the patio, John, and this may be a landscape question, but so you mentioned that the hardscape was still in process, and maybe just talk a little bit about that intent and what you envision, and we could give you feedback on that.
Don, did you have any input that you wanted to share on that? Yeah, just to keep it, in line with the historic nature of a home of that era. Being that they have a large family with 6 children, we'd want to be able to accommodate, outdoor dining and some recreation areas. But there's expansive views to the backyard, so the prominent entertaining space would be right in through here off of the conservatory. There is a side patio, which is very small currently, and there's steps that come off there, and that would just get reset to work with the configuration that's there.
Okay. Any other questions from commissioners? Yes.
I have one question, and I hate to be one string guitar, but I was unable to find a impermeable surface area calculation in the package. Was there one there, and what did it indicate in terms of the delta?
I don't think we had, didn't seem like there was a need to do impervious surface calculations with all the property, and we didn't do it. To answer your question, it hasn't been done, but the house does conform to setbacks, it does conform to bulk, but we never performed a.
Well, it would seem
impervious surface.
removal of that slab would almost equal
Well,
everything
that's a
you've
good
added.
point, yeah. That's
Mhm.
that's a good-sized basketball court that's coming out, so.
Yeah, impervious surface is something that we always consider maybe secondarily in terms of our mandate, but it's certainly a question, especially as it impacts adjoining neighbors and to the east, and a lot of it will just depend a little bit on the plantings and the absorption rate and the grade and all that. So, I think that's, as we get into deliberations, that may be some areas of feedback as well. Any other questions
Sure.
Yes, Commissioner Wheeler.
It does look like it drains down towards the north, towards the school, so I think that's, I wouldn't be concerned with the impervious surface. I would be concerned maybe about the roof around the conservatory. Now, you're taking out a landing and a pair of French doors?
Yeah, currently at the landing, there's French doors that go down quite low.
Right.
We'd be taking those French doors and raising the sill on those and
Yeah.
as low as we can maintain, because but chances are, I think we're going to be about 1.5 feet higher than the sill of the threshold of a door, but still fill the opening with same style of
Okay,
of
you
door
use a
that's there.
matching window.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah.
Now, I'm
Wherever we
concerned
can-
that that's on the north, and, you know, you're gonna have some freeze thaw, and you wanna make sure you have good drainage around
Flashing and
that.
all, I know all about that. We're going to have saddles and crickets and whatever needs to happen to get the water to drain out of there.
Yeah.
And it's copper. It's flashed and counter flash. So
Okay, and just another aside, the bedrooms, and now it looks like you might be going through one bedroom to get to another bedroom. Is that, or is that?
that space is kind of an interior family room or entertaining room for the combination of bedrooms. So it's not a bedroom.
Okay.
Proper.
Okay.
Any other
Great.
questions? No? Okay. Now's the time to open up questions or comments from the public. So if you have any comments or questions, please come on up, sir, and introduce yourself and tell us where you live, and please speak into the microphone so the thousands of folks at home can hear you.
Thank you. My name is Shahab Fatizam. My wife Melody is here with me. Like Mr. Crawford, we've been residents of Lake Forest for 20 years. And we chose to live in this neighborhood about 18 years ago because of its historical district quality to it. The homes were all lush property, trees, plants around them. The houses weren't very open to each other. They weren't visible. We love this part of the neighborhood. The fact that the homes had small 1920s garages.
Can you please tell us where you live in relation
Sorry,
to
yeah,
the
we
home?
live in the longest contiguous property to this house. We're at 1320 Sheridan. The entrance is on Sheridan, not on the lane that the tenants of this, the owners of the new house were living on. We live on the other side. And where it says Sheridan Road upside down, we are that property. So,
okay. Yeah, I think there's a graphic, John, where you have all the properties.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be helpful.
yeah,
Great.
it's
Okay.
the house on the right, top
The upper
right-hand
right,
side.
okay.
The house in question is in the middle of the top side.
Thank you.
And we are on the right hand. So we have the second equal longest contiguous border with the house. So contrary to the Crawford's petition that you heard, we never were consulted. We never got notice of this meeting. These neighbors that have moved in never introduced themselves to us or us to them, unfortunately. So we were unaware of these plans. By accident, 2.5 days ago, we bumped into someone who said, "We received something. Do you know that it's going to impact you the most?" And we were horrified. And so we saw the plans. That's why I dropped some travel plans to be here tonight in a rush to basically raise our hands to say that, first of all, we don't want to interfere in somebody trying to build a house that's livable for themselves and, improve a house and so on and so forth. Our concern is, A, to the historic aspect of the district. B, I don't think any of the houses, our house, for example, has a small garage. We have 3 cars and 2 of them just lie outside because we want to preserve the historic nature of the area. So to us, it's a little, being historically concerned and sensitive, the 3-car garage that's going to face our our house, and I don't know what lights they're going to be putting on it. This is something that hasn't come up. Will there be floodlights that are going to be visible to us? The first thing these people did when they moved in, our neighbors, is they cut a lot of the brush, made the house very visible, changed the tenure of the neighborhood. And then I noticed in the plans that somebody who bumped into us in the street gave us, the 3 trees that are being removed will put I think the nail in the coffin of just changing the environment completely and making it very open to our house. It looks like a new development now in the western suburbs of Chicago, by taking all these trees down, all the shrubbery down, and so on and so forth. The additions are not historically sensitive, in our opinion, but that's an opinion. I think the Historic Commission has to rule on that. The additions, the ones that we don't see selfishly, won't impact us, but I think the Historic Commission should be concerned about octagonal additions and so on and so forth, which are historically not at all appropriate for houses of that age. And so our concerns are historical nature of this area is going to significantly change with these additions. And I think removing trees one by one in Lake Forest has a sort of corrosive element. You wake up one morning and you see that Lake Forest has changed completely, with everybody saying, I'll just remove 1 tree here and 1 tree there. At the end of the day, you'll see a lot of trees have been removed, which changes the timbre of the city and the feel of the city that we so enjoy. So the construction itself with trucks and so on and so forth, again, selfishly won't affect us, because it's going to affect the lane, the very narrow lane, but that's not our issue. We don't want to interfere with that aspect of it, and we don't want to interfere with changing their home to accommodate their large family and so on. Obviously, it's their right to do, and we would be very supportive of it. The only thing I raised to the Commission is preserve the historic nature of this neighborhood. We're very concerned about that. We're concerned about floodlights in front of garages that'll be visible in our house at a minimum. I think the shrubs that are being planted on the side really ought to be as high as possible, trees as high as possible, that at least you can bring back some of the old aspect of this neighborhood, which was so beautiful when we moved in. So that's basically what I had to say, and just wanted to bring it to your attention. Thank you very much for allowing for this, and we'll see how it goes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your comments. Anybody else have any questions from the public that, why don't you respond next, and we'll, yes, sir, come on up, and please introduce yourself, where you live, and speak into the microphone so everyone can hear you. Thank you.
Arthur Miller, 169 Wildwood Road, here with the Preservation Foundation little group tonight. And mostly I just would say that historically this house is good. It represents, the style is romantic, but it's arts and crafts, kind of revival of traditional style. And there are kinds of forms that were used for different kinds of projects that are easy to find in books that are at Lake Forest Library, Lake Forest College Library. So they might be able to look and find a form that was maybe a little bit more, that might be a little bit more in sympathy there. The garage issue is a complicated one, and I think that, and I don't know how you get around the tree issue that they're bringing up, but one thing that is historically possible in this neighborhood and others is to have a detached garage. So that, in other words, it could be that something that could wind its way maybe through the trees where the building is actually coming down or something, and then have a detached garage somewhere in the back. Might be, it's another thing that's part of the local characteristic. The back of the building is, it looks like other buildings that this architect did. There's one right across from the Wensia Club, the old DeLong house that's there. So it's a very nice house, and I'm sure it's interesting and probably quirky inside, but it's worth thinking about very carefully how to do this. And the neighbors' concerns are, that house is also very significant. That's a Stanley Anderson house. It was for a long time the Charles Myers house, and it's worthy of being respected and seriously too. So they're all very nice houses, and it's just a matter of how you figure out how to accommodate everything in the space. But there is a lot of land there. That's true. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for the comment. Appreciate that. Anybody else have any comments? And if you'd like to respond, you can comment. Hopefully you guys will meet and you'll get together at some point. But, yeah.
Regarding the lights, floodlights are never an issue. City has ordinance, you have to have special covers and shields on them, and they're not supposed to shine on neighbors' property. We would never put floodlights on. The previous owner had floodlights in the backyard, which will be removed in the trees, and landscape lights. It would be a landscape plan that would be addressed to proper permitting, number one. Number two is the trees that have been removed were the combination of a mismatch of hedges that were along the driveway on the outer ring and opened up to give some more light come through. The house is very dark. The house sat for many years, as you know. The previous owner moved out over 5 years before we moved, so that house was vacant for a long time prior to us purchasing it. If anything, I hope you appreciate that we've enhanced and cleaned up the landscaping and maintained the structure from what was there being neglected. We're very sensitive of matching materials that are historically on the present on the home currently. So the additions that were done in the 80s and early 60s on that garage. We've looked at this. This plan has been looked at for over 1.5 years. It wasn't something that just started overnight. We've addressed this with city staff. Prior to Kate, city staff looked at this project and we went through with another architect and it just didn't fit. So we retained a second architect, Jonathan, and has been very sensitive to the project. Regarding the trees of putting a detached garage in the back, we did look at that option because there are other homes in East Lake Forest that have that addressed. However, that would create more impact on the back. So if we were looking from the east onto a detached garage and the lights and lights that would stand till city ordinance 11 o'clock, that would be an issue. So that's why the side load was created. Also, a one-car garage that can maybe fit a Mini Cooper is just not something that anyone on the board could even support, of not being able to allow a family to have a 3-car garage. This house is under bulk. We went through the bulk calculation numerous times, and we proved staff had some calculations that were wrong, and it ended up that it was under 50 square feet under bulk with all the design elements. So we're not trying to overbuild on the property. We're trying to be sensitive to neighbors. If anything, that's not correct. When the neighbor said that we haven't met, we actually cleaned up trees that were falling over the side of your property. And my wife, 1.5 years ago, when we were removing some of the trees that were damaged during some of the ice storm, there was a tree that fell on the house. She did ask you if that was okay if we can clean up some of the branches. So I apologize that we haven't met sooner, but this is not the way to conduct business with neighbors. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. I appreciate the comments. And are there other public comments? Oh, sure. Come on up. Thanks.
Just from the standpoint of the trees that are proposed to be removed, the branching is approximately 30 feet up in the air before it starts. We're looking at all trunk. So currently there's really no privacy that's provided by those trees. And what would be proposed to be planted along that east property line would provide privacy that currently isn't there.
How tall would those be?
On the plan that we submitted, they would be 8 feet tall. and the density, we may, that would be something that we could take a look at if the heights were not adequate.
Clarification, did you state that you are going to be able to put the entire double diameter all on site? Is that the
I didn't state that. The site does have a lot of trees, so we'll have to look carefully at.
I don't know if that's going to be the case at this point.
We will do our best to do that. I think there's opportunity, especially along the perimeters to the east and to the south where the school is, because there is a bunch of buckthorn and some trees that are low quality. There's some ash trees that would probably need to be removed. So that creates pockets where, because the last thing we want to do is put trees in that won't be able to stand the test of time. We want to give them the proper setting and room to grow. So we would just, probably focus on larger trees initially to make up the caliper inch ratio. But that study, though, we would work on to make certain that the numbers, as I look at, if we're talking only 5 trees now versus the 7, that makes that more achievable as well. So we'll do our study on our end.
Okay. Thanks. If there are not any questions.
Can I ask Kathy a couple questions? Kathy, just a couple issues. One on the notification. Could you just help me understand what the typical process is for who we notify and how broad and net you cast out there?
The code requirement is to notify properties 3 deep. So these residents are immediately adjacent. They were on our list. We tend to err notifying more. We did confirm that the mailing went out. We actually received 1 envelope returned, undeliverable, so that helps to verify. But we don't have control over whether things get delivered. We do always encourage petitioners to talk with neighbors. We always say, rather than have neighbors find out by getting a letter in the mail, it's always seems more productive to at least give people a heads up.
Well, it sounds like it wasn't an intent to leave anyone off it was quite the opposite, that you intended for everyone to be notified.
Our notice,
okay,
based on our records, as Kate mentioned, was 30-plus properties, so we did exceed the area.
I've been on the commission almost a year now, and this is the first issue I've ever heard of lack of notice or that falling through. But I also lost a couple Christmas cards, so I mean the U.S. mail is not perfect. Secondarily, just to reinforce that the city lighting code regarding the concerns of the neighbor for floodlights, that would be part of the final requirement that you would go through with the petitioner to make sure that all of that was going to meet those requirements for the city. That's correct.
Yes, I think on the elevation you have coach lights shown, those would not meet the city requirements. The fixtures do need to direct light downward. There is a requirement that they be turned off at 11, not be allowed on all night. Obviously, if someone's coming home late, that's, and we would also review the intensity of light. And lighting from neighboring properties is one of the most frequent complaints we get.
Okay, but it's something that you'll work through in the regular course of the process here. And then the last question I have has to do with this barrier hedge that the landscape architect's putting up, and they said it's going to be up to 8 feet, and it sounds like there's some flexibility on how dense you can make that. So that's something that we could put as a condition on approval, that the petitioner would work with you and hopefully the neighbors to make sure that there was some, just some satisfaction to the neighbor that that's a proper barrier there.
We have to acknowledge that there's not much room to plant there. There will be a limit to the amount of screening that can go in that location. We could certainly work to get the most appropriate species and the most height, but you also have a situation where you'll likely be snow plowing that area. So when you have a planting strip that thin, the long-term viability, it's hard to commit that there will be a significant screen there, but we will certainly do our best.
Thank you.
Okay, let's, if there's no more questions, we can maybe kick off deliberation. I'll just maybe give you guys the issues that I heard touched upon, and Commissioner Schaefer had mentioned some of them, but some of the concerns, and just big picture, the city has recommended we continue the petition. That's the city recommendation. We don't always take the city recommendation, but we certainly think about that in terms of of their comfort level and then our design criteria. So let me just tell you what I heard on the new structure, and then we can talk about the demolition criteria on the existing ones. But the impervious calculation and the drainage impact potentially to the east. I mean, I think that was something that Commissioner Travers had talked about. There's still some work to be done on the hardscape plan and specifically the patio that's near the gazebo. There was a little bit of trepidation, it sounded like, around the existing garage door and if it was going to stay within the front facade or not. The landscape detail in general, and two points. One, I guess the double inch kind of replacement tree plan, and then the screenage to the property on the right, and just how robust you can get there. And then the lighting concerns, the current window or the current lamps or lights maybe don't conform, but just to getting some general feedback there. There was some concern on the gazebo roof line that seemed to you've already thought through, and maybe it couldn't be addressed, and this is the best solution for it. So that may not be a heightened one, but I thought I'd mention that. And then there's the bigger picture, just what is this doing around the historic nature of the property? And I'll comment, and then I'm going to stop talking and let other people talk about it. But it's one of the reasons why our commission exists, is that we have the design criteria, and we have the character of the town and the streetscape, and we have the owners of the property and their rights, and we have the adjacent property owners, and really we're trying to balance these things and ostensibly allow homeowners to upgrade their properties to meet the modern needs and invest in historical structures and parts of our town that, frankly, we can't treat as a museum. At the same time, we want to try to be sympathetic to the existing architecture and the massing and the roof lines, and of course the folks that live around the community. So I'm very much in favor of a continuation on a couple fronts. One, it's always tough to get a design and come here with concerns for 2.5 days, irrespective of what the intent was and all of that. But a project that's a year and a half in the working, there's probably an opportunity to get together with the neighbors over a 1.5 year period. And then the issues that I mentioned just need to be a bit more flushed out. I do think personally the detached garage option probably isn't the best, and I'd be sympathetic to this design if there was some detailing and the lighting issues and the screening was addressed. So I'll pass the baton on to other commissioners to share their points of view on the new design. And I'll also caveat my statement with, I'm comfortable with the removal of the existing structures, and that, the back kind of sunroom is inconsistent and new, and I'm fine with the other one as well. So anyone else want to share their thoughts?
Well, I won't belabor it. I agree with everything you said, Jim. The only addition I'd make is over the past several meetings, we've labored to make sure that we make homes livable for different neighbors here in town, especially as we get grayer and we want elevators. And I think we also have to be, equally sensitive to big families, because that's part of our character too, that we're a town for families. And so I just hope that that helps push me in a way here to make sure that we try to do what's right for the family while we're trying to balance the architectural issues.
Thanks. Any?
Yeah, I kind of agree. Well, I really hate to take down trees, but sometimes they have to go. If a couple of them are not in the best shape, you know, they're going to go anyway. And examining for a detached garage, I can't see any nice way to do it. Just doing a couple quick scribbles. And the addition, it's using elements that are familiar with the rest of the house. And it looks like, it is a big family. The existing family room is it kind of clashes with the house. So I concur with that demolition. But I think this will make the house very livable, and I'm all in favor of having a house evolve with the time, and it needs change, and I think, this is a nice job. I think, we should go ahead with it.
John?
Sure. Other things being equal, given that it's my understanding that the architect had carefully looked at the option of a detached garage as suggested by the Preservation Foundation and Ponte, as did my
Yes.
colleague. I would have been inclined to move forward with the initial recommendation of city staff with the changes of replacing the now non-functional single garage door, perhaps with the espalier feature, with making sure that great attention is paid to lighting concerns of the neighbor to the east, and that great attention is paid to shielding concerns of the neighbor to the east. So that would have been my inclination, and I would still, be willing to move in that direction.
Okay, and just to clarify, you're, Commissioner Schaefer, you're in support of the project with conditions, or are you supporting a continuance as the city recommended?
I'm supporting the continuance as the city recommends.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so am I. And Wells, where are you?
If we need to revisit this, I'm okay with that, but I don't see any reason at this point to.
Okay, so you'd be comfortable with.
I'd be comfortable.
Commissioner Travers'
approving this.
I don't want to speak for Commissioner Travers, but it sounded like he was comfortable with. You guys are in the same place. Is that a fair statement? Is that right?
I think so.
We get together before the meeting.
No. Is that? Are you? So you're in support with the caveats and the issues on a conditional basis that Commissioner Travers had made? Okay.
Yep, and I'll amend. I'm okay with the continuance, but if the commission, if my colleagues want to approve it, I'm in favor of the petition. I think with certain caveats, and so I guess I can go either way.
Okay. Commissioner Alfie, how are you feeling about the petition?
Well, I certainly am supportive of the demolition and with the comments that have been made by yourself regarding the questions that have been brought up. I guess I would have more comfort in seeing the more complete landscape plan with seeing how the replacement tree situation is handled, but
How about how the existing garage door is treated?
Well, I guess I was under the assumption that we had kind of come to the conclusion that was going to be revised.
And would you want to see it back, along with the lighting plan and more detail on the landscaping and
I would like to
the
see
hardscape plan?
Yes, I would like to see more detail on the landscape plan, but whether that is enough to hold the thing up when everybody else is in favor of moving it ahead, I can live with that, hoping that or trusting that the staff can also see to it that the landscape plan has accomplished the things that we've outlined.
Okay, Commissioner Gale, how are you?
Well, I find this one difficult. I think the architectural changes, the demolition and the additions are, to me, I'm quite willing to support them. I deplore the loss of the trees, but it looks as though that may be the trade-off. I would suggest an alternative to leaving the current garage door. I support the notion of examining something else. But what disturbs me is that, and I know it's hard to explain, but there appear to have been two neighbors who did not receive notification, and as we've all agreed, that could come for many, many reasons. It may not be the fault of the city, but at all. I mean, but I think that for us to push forward, that gives me pause, and I would hope that it would be possible for the neighbors, one of whom is here and has spoken, another of whom who had objections is not here, but for the parties to talk to neighbors. And it is with that in mind that I wonder if I would lean toward accepting the city's recommendation for a continuance, in the hopes that this could turn out to be, there could be more mutual resolution and a coming together. I do think that the neighbors' concerns about lighting and about screening are important, and I hear that you're saying that you're going to take every effort, but perhaps maybe there's some way to increase the screening there. I understand that the trees that are taken down will not be, that they don't constitute a screening. At any rate, there are just enough issues that seem to me open that I would be a little bit uncomfortable in this particular case in pushing forward, hoping that we could find a way to bring about neighborhood harmony. I guess that's my goal.
Great, thank you. Well said. So I'm open to a motion, and we'll, a continuance. I mean, if you're keeping score at home, there was
3-2.
It seemed pretty split, and so. Yes, please, John.
I'm sorry to interrupt your process. Chairman Preslak, would this be a full presentation at the next meeting, or would it be handled as a vote without, or just supplementing the information on the landscape without involving another full tilt presentation?
Yeah,
do we want to tone it down, or
yeah, no, typically when
certain areas?
Yeah, no, great question. So typically what we'll see when there's a continuance and we've given feedback along the lines of the lighting or the impervious surface or hardscape or screening, we'll typically ask over the 10 minutes to focus on the deltas from the last time and just focus in on what's been changed. And there doesn't seem to be there's no real structural concern issues with the roof line or the massing. I think that the one thing that I think is fairly significant that we typically don't just allow staff to resolve with the architect is the front facade and the garage door or not. I mean, we've had a couple people that have thought that may not be the way to go, and is it a working garage or is it changed somehow with brick insets? And that's a fairly large feature of the streetscape. So just touching on those points, if I was starting the meeting, I'd say, last time we met, we appreciate the feedback. Here's the direction we got. We work with the city. We met with the neighbor, and we went into more detail with the screenage and the landscape plan. We have the impervious calculation, and here it is. And we verified the draining issues are not. We've kind of rethought the lighting on the bays, and here's what we're coming up with, and it meets code. And we think that the kind of roof line around the gazebo is set and is what we should be doing, and here's what we're thinking on the hardtack. I mean, that's it, And so I know it's a year and a half, and we didn't mean to get here, but I do think it's probably time well spent to fully bake it, address the design issue in the front element. And we work with staff, and if they say continuance, we're open to that typically, just from a process perspective. But there are also some elements here. So I think that, to me, kind of...
Jim, I might be the swing here, but given your comments and where we are, I'll move to continue for 30 days.
All right, we have a move to continue by Commissioner Schaefer. Do we have a seconded?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, so hopefully, we've given you feedback on the issues, and, if you have any questions, there's always the tape of this, and/or just reaching out to city staff, but thank you very much.
Thank
Yeah, I really appreciate it.
It might be a good idea if you could bring in a suggested fixture for those fixtures that are on the picture, whatever.
Yeah, we can do that.
All right,
Yeah, that's critical.
and hopefully you all get a chance to meet. We have an agenda item for the opportunity for the public to address the HPC on non-agenda items. Anyone?
Stressed before.
No, I hear none. Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Seconded?
I say-
All in
Oh.
favor? Aye. All right, thank you.